President Trump is raging at Jim Acosta, the chief White House correspondent, following a report that quoted a source on the coronavirus task force that says that Trump has a deep misunderstanding of the severity of the pandemic. Well, I would say that he just doesn't care. I mean, sure, bank on stupidity, because generally when you're dealing with Donald Trump, stupidity often wins. But there's also apathy and lack of empathy. And so there's that. So now let's get to the tweet here. Trump earlier on Twitter said, CNN has no sources on the task force. Their sources are made up. Pure fiction. Jim Acosta, it's a fake reporter. Everyone I don't like is fake news. All right. So now let me give you some context on the report, right? So now the report said, and it was published earlier this morning, it said, according to the source, referring to the president, he still doesn't get it. He does not get it. And this follows the disastrous interview with Axios, Jonathan Swan, where, you remember you're shuffling around like papers, and he's like, no, you don't understand. We're actually doing the best in the world. He said all sorts of insane things. And so that led to a lot of people to be like, he does not understand this virus because he doesn't want to understand this virus. Now, that's not what the source is getting, right? And so, or saying. So, look, in response to that, right, getting it would require not only being somewhat intelligent, right, but also possessing a shred of empathy. That is a trait that has likely been beaten and shamed out of Donald Trump as a child. That's just my speculation, of course.
The Trump family had a huge house in Queens that they used to refer to as Tara. It had 9 bedrooms, it had columns, it was quite beautiful, but it was in Queens.
The Trump family would spend 50 years building memories here. Fred Trump, a real estate developer, designed the house himself and raised Donald and his brothers and sisters in luxury.
It's not like he knew anything but comfort. When it rained and he had to deliver his papers, the chauffeur would take him around.
But Donald's father was tough and insisted everyone learn the family business.
He was a guy who worked 7 days a week. It's Sunday, why wouldn't you be working? And would, even on the weekends, would pile the kids in the car and go to a building site, pick up old nails that weren't used. Why would you waste a nail?
Fred Trump was a machine. I mean, he was a human machine. He was driven beyond whatever the description of driven could ever mean. And when you look at the picture of Fred and you look at Donald, you see the great resemblance between the two. And when you think about Fred's energy, you see how it is channeled through Donald.
Fred was seen as passionate about the business, but not warm with his children.
Cold. He was not a warm person. I see his father at the beach, even with a suit and a tie and a hat, a clipped, very kind of military mustache, and simply being correct.
Fred had theories. He shared them with his kids. Donald especially liked one of them.
This is a very deep part of the Trump story. The family subscribes to a racehorse theory of human development, that they believe that there are superior people, and that if you put together the genes of a superior woman and a superior man, you get a superior offspring.
This is something that the dominant society, you have to discuss the negative effects of systematic white supremacy and the negative repercussions that it causes on people in the dominant society. Because you're trying to live up to a myth. You're trying to live up to a fallacy. You're trying to live up to a fallacy that because I have European descent, I'm supposed to be superior over these group of people. Unfortunately, too many people in our society think like that. And that's a sickness. And that's something that nobody never wants to address in this country openly. Nobody wants to address this. That's the problem with racism in this country. Nobody's talking about it from the perspective of systematic white supremacy, which is the only racism that we have that's systematic. So it's real heavy. It's real heavy, but again, the guy, he felt powerless.
Fred's other theory? Life was a competition. There were winners and there were losers. He called the winners killers.
The way the game got played in his household was, if you did not win, you lost. And losing was you got crushed. Losing was you didn't matter. Losing was you were nothing.
Donald took the lessons to heart, always tried to be the winner. But he was also a handful.
His brother Robert, who's very discreet, told me that Donald was always the kid in the family who would start throwing birthday cake at all the parties, that you would build up a tower of blocks, he would come knock your blocks down.
This is the person he's been, I think, since he was 5 years old. Donald told me that he is essentially the person he was in first grade, and that he hasn't really changed.
His self-definition was built around the idea that he was one tough son of a bitch. That meant in classrooms, that meant with teachers, that meant with his father.
By the 7th grade, even Fred had had it with Donald's mischief. He sent him up the Hudson River, just a few miles from West Point, to the toughest boarding school he could find, the New York Military Academy.
Well, what makes the knifer knife, the shooter shoot?
Society, the reflections of a child.
But what about the responsibility of the person who's doing it?
What person is doing it?
Susan Atkins?
Susan Atkins is only doing what the society raised her up to do.
Wasn't she only doing what you raised her up to do?
No, come on. You set a baby in the cradle, you go, he's just no more young or older than I am. He's just a baby in the cradle. You tell him, baby, won't you light my fire? Baby, won't you light my fire? And then the kid grows up, and what's he start doing? He starts lighting fire. You say, no good kid, firebug. You throw him in reform school. And then you come up and tell him, go out there doing them burglaries. You're no good. Get up against that wall and shine a light, scare him, held him up against the wall, and shake him down and say, we know you're out here doing these burglaries. And then these guys are practicing all this macho John Wayne trip, you dig? And then the kid goes woo-hoo, and he runs off and does whatever they're programming him to do. See, there's a reverse side of everything, too. There's a positive and a negative.